What if your greatest wound was also the gateway to your purpose? Welcome to Catalyst of Change, the space where we explore what it means to lead with soul, create with intention, and serve from the heart. Today's guest is Melanie Goldman, a passionate mental health educator and advocate whose honesty, heart, and healing journey are helping thousands transform how they view themselves and others. Through her platform, Mind Over Borderline, Melanie is teaching us how to meet mental illness with understanding instead of judgment, and how sharing our stories can be the first step in liberation. I am so excited for this. Let's dive in. Welcome.
It's really good to be here. I feel like we were already just talking for really intensely.
We were getting really into it, guys. And now we're gonna bring it back.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Well, it's amazing. And I think, one of the things I want to start with is we were where did we first meet?
I know.
We're wait. And then we both couldn't remember. And
I know. And I think what we were really kind of flabbergasted about and then kind of shocked about is the fact that we met at a time when we were completely different versions of ourselves.
Yes.
But then it's interesting. We met when we were in university drinking.
Yes.
Heavily.
Yes.
And very much so to the point where we almost were shocked that we knew each other in that time.
Yeah.
And I think what is the most interesting thing when we're talking about this is that we don't even know those versions of ourselves anymore.
Exactly.
And that people have a tendency to hold on to that kind of identity very tight. And I think what is interesting when I look at you specifically is that I see such a light. I see such a brightness. I see so much change. And when people say these expressions sometimes, oh no, people can't change or things can't change, and we hold really tightly to these things, that's hard for me, right? And spiritually, sometimes people talk about living different lives and different lifetimes, or living so many lives in the same lifetime. People sometimes, for me, what support means is understanding that we have to let go constantly to grow. And what does that mean? What does it mean that we're constantly changing, evolving? How do we look at somebody and understand what they need, but also how do we continuously grow in a world where people are holding on so tightly, right? And, we're discussing this very big word that people throw around, boundaries.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't look at the word boundaries so much as I look at light and darkness. And I think I've had to kind of sit with it for so long because it's not boundaries. It's your light. And if you can't stand in your light and if you can't allow yourself to be you, then those people don't know that they can't be their greatest light and you can't be your greatest light. So how are we constantly just becoming more of who we were always supposed to be? That was then. Were we even who we were?
Right.
Right? Or were we trying to suffocate for everybody else?
Right.
Right? Were we just jumping on another person's timeline or another version because we were scared? Or are we living as our truest selves right now? Because a lot of the work that I do, because even your introduction, is actually erasing. I'm constantly erasing, not just forgetting. When I say erasing, one of my favorite people ever is Ram Dass, and he passed away. Do you know who Ram Dass is?
I love Ram Dass.
Yeah, and he has this book, and it's called Becoming Nobody. And even the title is kind of scary. What is becoming nobody? Essentially, it's similar to what Arthur Brooks also talks about. Do you know who Arthur Brooks is? He's a social psychologist.
Okay.
He wrote a book with Oprah. It's this beautiful book. But we get to the end of our lives. And when we pass away and you're giving a eulogy, are you reading off somebody's resume? Right? What they did. You're not reading all the things somebody did.
Yeah.
Alexia, she climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Alexia, she worked at this place and did this and did that. And for me, it's very tough because I meet people and they start telling me all the things they did, all the people they know when I ask them who they are.
Right.
And I'm kind of sitting there like as if it would impress me, and I'm not impressed. And not in a mean way, not to invalidating those people, but in a way that I want to know who they are. So if I were to describe you, right? And I was saying before, I was saying, you are the kindest, sweetest, even just seeing you, your energy, your light. You just make me smile and you make me laugh. But that's how you make a lot of people feel. So if I get to the end of your life, I'm not going to even remember half the, right? After you did, because that's not important. But we forgot what's important. So I start to erase a lot of this stuff with people because I meet people every day and there's almost like this hold on their bodies. It starts to suffocate who they are. The money, the pressures, life, the standards, the measurements. And I was living in this like stuck pattern for so long. And there's a lot of versions, the lives we live, but they're not the life we want to live. We're in this constant survival. So people throw around mental illness, right? Depression, anxiety. When I work with BPD, the illness that I've been diagnosed 10 years ago, why am I comfortable with this? Because I'm comfortable understanding the erasal of a lot of what these symptoms can do, what life can do to people. And so I don't look at it so much as a tragedy as more of an understanding to who we are as people and humans. Is that kind of understanding that, right?
Totally. I feel like, well, you've been like such an open book as long as I've known you. You've been this amazing open book. Like your heart is so open. You share fearlessly with the world everything, like your ups and downs and the struggles and the tribulations, all from a place. How it occurs to me is of service, of like wanting to empower others, of wanting to use your story and your gifts to say, hey, like, look what's possible. And you've inspired so many people and you continue to through all the amazing work that you're doing. Your new clinic, congratulations, all the clients that you work with, all the people even that follow you on social media that have seen your evolution. And one of the things I'm curious about, because you mentioned like BPD, for example, and, you know, we were talking about growing up and like just what it was like being in like the school system or all of these things. So like in your life, where was a period? Was it when you were diagnosed? Was it before where you felt like something different in your life?
I mean, I don't think I've ever met a person yet, and I've talked and met many people with the diagnosis of BPD, but you know what? I don't think I've met a lot of any person who's a survivor. Let me reframe that. That doesn't feel like they're a unicorn or a little bit different, right? Right? But that's a superpower. But yet we feel like this intense shame or stigma. But when I was very, very, very little. But the difference is when you're kind of in this world and you don't know how to navigate it, right? And similarly, Marsha Linehan, like the developer of dialectical behavioral therapy, talks about this too, about being a tulip in a rose, right? You're like a tulip, you're sticking out and there's all these roses. I don't think it's very hard for me to stick out. I laughed today, right? You're supposed to wear no patterns, no anything, types of clothes. Like I've always worn different clothes, different things. Like if you think about the character, do you know Pippi Longstocking?
Yes.
My sister and me like love these type of like, different socks. And my sister also struggles tremendously with mental health. And again, these are things that are genetic.
Yeah.
But for me also, it's a catch-22. What we suffer with is also our superpower. My sensitivity, part of BPD, is my superpower. I felt kids around me. I felt people around me since I was little. I used to talk to my stuffed animals, sing to my stuffed animals. I would talk to the little kids in my classroom. when I noticed they were suffering. I feel like you're a connector. You're a super empath. This is why, like, hello. But it's hard to navigate a world that wasn't set up for you that way.
Right.
But then everybody suffers. I've yet met a person, whether it's the people behind this camera, hey guys, whether it's, my parents, who I love dearly now, honestly, who it's any person is suffering, but it's to the degree that they're suffering and how. But for me, it's a different type of feeling that my heart felt, my skin felt, my body felt around me when I was young. But so when you talk about growing up in that kind of feeling, it was very hard to understand it. And the world, when I say it wasn't set up that way, it can come with a combination of trials and tribulations, and still does. So I don't want people to feel the way I do. And again, that can also be troubling because you don't want to get into a rescue mentality of every person around you. So my filters have been wide open for way too long. So I had to learn a few years ago and keep learning how to navigate, not saving every person at the expense of myself. Also, not everybody wants to be saved.
Right.
Or if they do, they're not ready. And not everybody can be saved, as sad as it sounds.
Yeah.
And that's very hard when you keep trying and you keep trying and you keep trying, but it's also not all my work.
Right.
And I don't want to bring too much of God or spirituality or any of that in here because that's not as important to my clients, my practice. It's very individualized for me in that thought process. But we cannot individually save every person on the planet. We can only do our purpose. And when I talk about purpose, it's very different. People think purpose can be outside of themselves. When I talk about purpose, I talk about I am my purpose, like me specifically. So what's my conviction, right? And you talk about catalyst for change. I'm my catalyst for change. So the specific jobs that I was given that I'm good at doing. So if I don't follow that timeline and I jump onto another one, or I'm scared to, or somebody tells me something, or I start to believe something, it starts to feel awkward in your system. And I feel like you might understand what I mean.
Totally. So much so.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the way it resonates for me as you're saying it is like being in that embodiment. And it's almost like that inner knowing or like that inner guidance system that we all have and like tuning into it. And as you're saying, like when someone or something external comes in, soups of possibly space. I'll use a really simple example.
Yeah.
But it's something I actually started practicing when I was starting on this was like something as simple as being with friends and someone saying, do you want sushi or Italian? And like in my heart, I think Italian. But I'd be like, whatever you want, or I like because I was scared that if I said Italian and someone wanted sushi, they'd like hate me or something. So I would not even speak up for something so simple like that. So that was some of those places were some of the, it sounds crazy, but like some of the scariest places that I would start because I know, okay, at least this is something. So I try, okay, I kind of feel like pasta. Okay, cool, let's go for Italian and start working. And I'm like, and then I'd sit there eating my pasta and I'm like, wow, like this feels so good, like doing this. But
100%.
It was really baby steps.
So what you're actually saying isn't small. And people think it's small because it's actually part of emotional buttons. So it's interesting because even in my community, and I will say my community, what I mean is the BPD community, for example,
Okay.
we actually, depending on the spectrum, for example, if you're over-controlled, right, everything's in a spectrum. If somebody's very over-controlled or perfectionism, or they spend more time in their head, they might actually internalize a lot more, like inside. So this is where they're very stuck inside and they want to do what you're saying more.
Right.
So they'll feel very, very bad, but then it's uncomfortable for them to rock the boat.
Right.
But then it's like a nozzle that wants to just blow. They don't want to do all those things. They want to say other things. So from the way that somebody comments on what they're wearing or not wanting to go to that family event or wanting to say no. But those patterns or those behaviors started long ago. And they also might be cued or from memories back in days. So maybe their dad neglected them, so they're scared of being neglected again. So they start making these associations. So, and I'm just kind of jumping here. So a lot of the exercises or things that I do are understanding a lot of these patterns. Or why do we keep people pleasing? Or why do we keep doing these over controlled, safe things? They're not safe. It's not safe. You're not actually attuning to what you want or who you are. And when people think about the idea of joy, they think it has to be something we're working towards, but it's available right in this moment. If I were to say to you, do you want to go do this? And you really didn't want to, that's an instant.
Right.
Instant.
Right.
Most people just instantly know if they want to do something or not.
Right.
But they're like, yes, I'll go. Yes, I'll be there. FOMO, JOMO, all this stuff. I'm like, no. If you don't, just don't.
Yeah.
Why don't we just say no?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Right.
You know, I make a joke because there's like that Let Them book with Mel Robbins. It's like the biggest book ever. And I'm like, I'm going to write a next book. It's going to be called Who Cares? I literally, because me and my husband are always like, who cares? Does that make me sound mean? No, because it's not mean.
Yeah.
People think you're being mean, but it's not. Because you're standing and reclaiming a place of you that wants to feel that it's okay to say who cares. And it's not who cares, I don't care about you. Do you see the differences?
Yes.
It's who cares, this is my life. Like, I don't really like that.
Yeah.
I don't really like that song. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's not personal. Who cares? Let them is a little different to me. And again, people are going to be like, comments, that's the same thing as let them. I'm not saying that. Who cares? What I'm trying to say is, who cares? It's not about you. And that's the same as let them. But I mean, who cares? We can all do it.
Yeah.
Do you, do me, let's all just get along.
Yeah.
It's my life, your life, let's all. Peaches, plums, ketchup. Like, it's all potatoes. Like, we're so serious. Like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Absolutely. And, like, I feel like one of the things when reflecting on actioning this is like also being open, like you said, for other people to have that feedback. So like if I am comfortable to just say no, or I get to that point, I also keep it open so that people around me can do the same. Hey, do you want to go to this thing? No. Okay, cool. Sounds good. I'll see you later. So it's like that give and take where it's like creating that safe space and community and the people around us where we're able to do that. And I'm curious for you, like, how was that journey getting to a point of embodying this? Like, have you always been this self-assured?
No, not at all. Like, I'm talking like codependent family structures, relationships. I deal with, so there's, for BPD specifically, because let's concentrate on a little bit more of that, especially with my clinic being such a niche clinic with BPD, but I deal with other people. But for example, a lot of the symptoms of BPD have to do with abandonment and rejection. And, there's a lot around shame. But there's a huge wide difference between shame and guilt. Shame, I am bad, for example. Guilt, I did something bad. For the longest, and honestly, up until like a year and a half ago, everything is, I'm bad, I am bad, I am bad, I am bad. No, Mel, you didn't do anything bad for just being yourself. It's okay. And I think shame is an undercurrent that is so sad and wildly misunderstood in society that a lot of people live with shame. Like everybody that I've met, a lot of people outside of my community, that a lot of people come and talk to me, or like I said, since I was little, I can feel the shame and they don't even have to say it. It's the way that they talk, the language, the way that they even word things to themselves, how they don't shine. When you've gone through, sadly, and I don't need to give you we'd be here till like, honestly, 5 a.m, and then we'd have to 4 more episodes of the things that I've been through, where I don't blame anymore. I've had to forgive myself and forgive people, because Marianne Williamson, who I think is so brilliant, you know who she is?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm doing a course in miracles, but I've also been following her for God knows how many times, so long. There's an expression, especially in A Course in Miracles, I'm willing to see this differently, this behavior differently. So we're separating a human from their behavior. It's very difficult. I had a mentor say, ego is ease God out. That's brilliant. I feel like everybody's listening to this is going to be like, woo, woo.
Yeah.
When we are living from a place where we're so attached, again, to this ego, which speaks first and speaks loudest, it's very blurred to what's behind it. And behind it is the heart. Behind it is truth. And behind it is who we really are. And who we really are is the forgiving part to all of everything. In my life, I've met a lot of egos with an S. People that underneath it all are so beautiful, but broken versions of who they want to be, but they're not being. They're acting from a place where it's very hurtful to me. And so I tried to change them, remember, rescue them. I tried to love them more. If I loved them more, and it would make me cry right now, I could cry. Some of these people, I love them still. I love all of these people because I love people so much that like I grip them. You know, like if I grip you, if I hold you tighter, you're going to change. But that doesn't change somebody. You can't shake somebody to change them. I watch a lot of my clients daily struggle to understand the difference between who somebody is and what they do when they're upset. A lot of the behaviors that people do, including with BPD, when they're in a dissociated state, in a state where their symptoms are acting up to, in a state they're not regulated, when they're not well, and they're not working. It's very tough because a lot of people turn them away. They talk bad, the stigma. So when you are wildly aware of it, you want to change it. And you want to change society's version of what is the truth. You know, what love is. And hello, love, harmony, I'm here in this place. So you start to really appreciate people who have done the work, who want to make the changes, and who are here in this kind of space of, the word that comes up for me is freedom, who want to get free from that binding. It feels like you're being bound, like tightened from the things that are holding you back from life. Sorry, I went in my circular tangent, but a little bit of what that is what I'm saying.
This is like, I feel like it is not a tangent so much as it is like your heart pouring out.
Yeah.
Like what you're sharing is so profound. And I feel like what you're saying, like holding on to the people we love, so many people can relate to that. And just holding on and wishing for them to change or something to change the circumstance. So like, how have you found, what has helped you to be able to let go or even know that you need to?
It's a really good question. Sometimes you have to let go because you know it's the best way that they have to grow. Because if you're still there pouring into them, it depends on the context, but if you're still there pouring into the ego, they can never free themselves from that version that they're stuck in. Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense.
So whether I get a message, because again, individualized practice, I work with everyone from an individualized place, that client and myself. But if I get a message and I say, hey, that person is benefiting from your love, from that place, it's going to keep them stuck. So it's hard for me. It's very hard for me because some of these people, I want to have them in my life.
Right.
But I actually would rather them grow, even if they have to suffer a bit. And then when they wake up, and if they never wake up, that's also very tough for me. But I hate the fact that this almost sounds like I'm being a know-it-all, but I'm not. It's because I also had to wake up.
Right.
I also had to go through it.
Yeah.
I also had to suffer. These are all things that I symptomatically went through. So funny enough, it's because I love them. You know, when you love something, you let it go and it comes back. It either comes back stronger. Sometimes I don't want it to come back because it was so hard to let go in the first place. But half the time you have to actually use your strength, use your powers, use your discernment, use all of your tools. And for some people who are more on the 3D realm, right? Some people on the 5D realm, they're over in woo-woo land with me, in the 5D and the 3D. I'm in all different worlds. They might call on God. They might call on spirit. They might call on, I could go on and on, whether tarot, astrology, numerology, we go like wherever we are, right? Okay. Shamans, like, where do you want me to go? Here, Tao, Dr. Masha Shah, right? Okay. Then if you're 3D, they might work in evidence-based practice. They might come on, call on to me. Might do evidence-based. We also work integration, inner child healing. There's so much we can do. But if we know we're holding on just because we can't let go and we're still all suffering in this mess together, what's the use in any of that?
Yes. Wow. I feel like this was a mic drop moment. Like that was so profound.
Got a mic, but we ain't touching it. Our people in the back are not going to be appreciate this mic drop moment. Pew. Yeah.
I love it. Like, and it is, I feel, I love how you mentioned all the different realms and the different ways that we can access like shifts or transformations. And one of the things I'm curious about in the work that you do is how has it been? Like, so you've gone through this transformation in your own life and lived embodiment, and now you're like being a cause in the matter of that for others. So how has that shift been, and what's it like working with clients and actually seeing their transformation?
Actually, what is amazing, to be honest with you, is if I didn't, and I have to be honest about it, there was a point a year and a half ago where I broke down. And I think that was so essential. And people are like, what do you mean it was so essential? I was so burnt out. I was like so depleted. And because I became the work, I became so like rescue and it has to be, the needs to be. And, you become so clinging to everything that you aren't separating from the people. You get obsessive, but that I got to the point where I was not even understanding anything. So when I broke down, I broke through because I had to do everything for me. And so I started understanding everything, but not everything. Like, I don't understand everything. But what I mean by that is I did a ton of stuff. I went on this serious trip for myself. I started doing the practices and the trainings that I needed to do. And I started working in the ways where I completely separated. But I was not clear. And now doing the work, I know what's mine and what's not mine.
Like energetically?
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you go into work and you end up hating it because you're starved, your system's starved, you've starved yourself from energy. You've just given. You become everything. You are on that timeline I was talking about, everybody else's timeline.
Right.
How are you supposed to be in a place of joy or knowing you are your purpose or knowing you're on the right timeline or knowing you're on the right track? You hate yourself. But you don't actually hate yourself. You hate everything. So I had to really understand what life was all about and erase. So that's what I did. And I literally went in. I went empty, like in everything, and just went like this canvas. But the funny thing is I was in the right place. I just wasn't in the right space, all of it.
Wow.
So I redid everything, ground up. And now when I meet people, if it's not right or they're not in the right, I know where to put them, pull them, go through. I'm still learning. I'm so excited about what I'm still learning and growing through, but it's so aligned. So that's why I said no one can pull me off.
Yeah.
Because I know whose energy is what.
Right.
So I know even today, if you came in with something and you were struggling, I would still know it's yours and what's mine.
Right.
Before it was all of ours. We were just one big filter together, one big energy source together, storm together. I'm not in your storm anymore.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And how would you, for anyone who's listening and they're like, that's how I feel, like we're all just big one storm. And so what would you tell them? Like, how do you get clearer like that?
I'm going to give all my secrets away today? Yeah, I would say maybe they got to book a session. I was just saying, no, I'm not actually saying that at all. No. I would say To be honest with you, that's why I always preach individualized practice.
Right. Yes.
Because my journey, but that's why I do sit with people individually to understand them.
Right.
Because that's why we're not all in one big storm together. Life is a storm.
Yeah.
But Alexia's storm is completely different when I open up your door.
Right.
Do I need to open up your door and take it on right now?
No.
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And does that sound mean? It might sound mean to some people who want me to take on their storm. Even the way I speak now, right? I can be laid back, but I can also be here. So it's defining the limit to where I'm going and growing and who I am now. And so for me, it's really defining what I'm opening up, what's inside your records, your Akashic records, or what's inside your records. Where are you? What is all of it? But I don't want to know all of it to everybody anymore. Maybe, but we have to discern all of that now. Because when I used to do support groups, for example, this was a big opening for me. I had a mentor, a wonderful woman. She looked at me and she said, I ran support groups for a few years. I think it was 2.5 years, an amazing organization. But I tended to, when I was virtually with 30 people or so, some people would show up, and sometimes I would disassociate because I would take on so much energy all at once. It would overwhelm me, and I would be like imagine giving amazing advice to like 30 people, and then sometimes I'd go to another place. Or it would be such powerful energy that it would just be so overwhelming. Doing that weekly, or once a month or biweekly, at one point, your system is on overload. Right. So I had to even understand for myself what I could take anymore. And how I could use all of my powers, call it powers for now, all of the things that I have, gifts, powers, who you have, what you have energetically, uniquely to you, to use it in this lifetime. Even now, if I feel overwhelmed or I feel anxious, how can I slow down? How can I regroup? Every moment, right? We all only have so much. So I have to every day keep discerning what I can do, what I couldn't. And at that time, I wanted to do more and more and more and more. But actually, it was actually giving me less and less for my life. So what I've gotten a lot from that is understanding that I don't need to be in that storm and everybody's storm and going through all that. So I have to navigate differently now so that I can have more, not do more.
That is so profound. And I feel like it's a huge shift. And you mentioned you mentioned the people where it's maybe they want you to take on the storm. What would you say to people who might be dealing with that, where they're learning how to manage their energy, create boundaries, and they have a response from people in their life?
So what I'm understanding, how to respond to those people?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, in a simple basis, I always stick to the I statements, right? Because a lot of what we get into is the categorization of blame. The you or them throwing it on. Yeah. So I do a lot of I can tell, right? I can tell, I feel right now that you're very overwhelmed, and that must be a lot for you. Right now I'm doing this at the moment. I'm sending you so much love and light, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Did you see it? We kind of shut it down a bit. Yeah. If we have to communicate with these people. Right. This is at the simplest core. And then if we're working in evidence-based, there's many different techniques to work with. Yeah. But similar on other bases, we can't shut out everybody, right? But who says no? Right? We're allowed to say no, like I said before. But I would say there's a lot of practice. People think practice is not a thing. Do you think practice isn't something we continuously do over and over and over again? Because remember we spoke about shame and guilt. Yes. For a lot of people who have not put up boundaries, they've not practiced what it feels like after. It's uncomfortable. Right. So I'll give you an example. My mom and me, we loved the phone for many years. It was continuously, she would call multiple times in the day. But when you run a business, you can't be like, yes, yes, yes. And like, I literally love my Jewish mother, but like, you can't pick up the phone like 1,000 times before 9 in the morning and after. And it's, I don't know if you've seen the memes of the mom, like with the voicemails and it's so cute because I know there's going to be a moment where I'm going to miss my mom's voicemails on like the 10, but she honestly, it's a sweet, sweet thing. But the guilt would come, the shame or the guilt would come in, right? Not the guilt, where, oh, I didn't call you at that time because you gave me that boundary, right?
Right.
And I'm doing the little shoulder thing. This is like, where did this come from, right? The little shimmy shake. But the truth is that after a while, people get it because you just don't answer in those times, or you set up a limit. And there's many, many ways of working with this, but it's not for them. It's for you. But Dr. Fox is fantastic for BPD community, has this thing called the emotional buttons. And there's many ways, but we have to start detecting them. And it gets uncomfortable for you for a bit. Yeah. So it's like working out. They're emotional muscles. We've got to actually work them. You got to practice. Because it was good for these people. Yeah. They want to know that they can do all these things or be and walk in these spaces and come in with their storm and vent and do these things, because who wouldn't want to vent to me? I'm not tooting my own little butt, but like, you know what I mean? Like, you would want to complain to me all day, but I don't have the bandwidth anymore. Right. So we still have to be careful with our own energetic spaces.
Yes.
So there's lots of ways of going about it, but it has to be individual to you.
Yeah.
So if the statements are what you would say and how you would go about it, and there's techniques and there's ways of going about it. Yeah. Whichever worlds you want to live in.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. I love it. It's like infinite, I feel.
So much.
You know, and one thing I didn't mention earlier, but I feel like it would be helpful just for anyone listening. What if there's someone who is not familiar with BPD?
Yeah.
You know, borderline personality disorder. What would you just share with them to get them acquainted with it? And also, like, with the idea of, like, what if there are people in their life who are showing signs or symptoms, or they themselves? What kind of next steps would you recommend for them?
So, I mean, you have to have 5 of the 9 symptoms to be diagnosed, but you don't have to be diagnosed. And most people don't know what BPD is, but a lot of people do now. It's becoming more well known. So some of the symptoms, if you are thinking, which are markers, right? Like I said before, we have abandonment, chronic feelings of emptiness, suicide ideation, oh my God, like this is my thing. And I'm like, oh, no. Impulsivity, but very chronic. So we're talking, some of the people markers would be gambling, sex addiction. Impulsivity to any degree. So we're very impulsive about, when I say me, anything. So spending lots and lots of money, like out of nowhere. How many symptoms have I labeled so far? I don't have my note sheets.
Yeah.
Okay. Abandonment, rejection, identity confusion. So that can come with chameleon effect. So I do love hair colors, but what that really means too is multiple things with the chameleon and identity confusion. That could be you've changed jobs several times. You've changed romantic positioning several times. You've changed careers in your life. That's why when I said you can have lived like 15 lives in one lifetime, that's what it can be like. It's why it's really marked by an identity, but then there's clusters. So cluster A, B, and C in the DSM. When I was talking about it being on a spectrum of the over-controlled, people with the diagnosis can exhibit, and there's 256 combinations of it.
Wow.
Because then you can have comorbidities, depression, anxiety. You can also have other diagnoses mixed with it, but that's not the 256 combinations. This is why it gets very confusing. But what I mean by BPD being very, very tough, it's very hard to describe. Even the feelings sometimes of having it, it can feel the sensitivity, like your skin some days is on fire. Oh, rage is a marker of it. So when people want to work with people with BPD, there's so much stigma around it because when somebody just gets diagnosed in the first 5 years, the problem is the fluctuations of these symptoms is like, they would describe it like a roller coaster. So somebody could be going through these symptoms on a daily, frequently, 1 hour to 3 hours, and then the next symptom if they're dysregulated. So it's very troubling. So when Marsha Linehan, for example, they say it's the gold standard DBT, right? When Marsha Linehan developed this, it doesn't always work for every person, being it's on a spectrum. Not everybody reacts the same way. I work individually with clients because not every person is the same.
Right.
So I get very upset because that's saying that I'm the same as you, as the next person, as the next person. So it's very important for me because validation is one of the greatest strengths in terms of research for helping somebody and the client with BPD. So it's, for me, more important to validate that person who has such a bad experience in their life. So if a therapist comes and they're so scared of working with that client, they're already kind of turning them away. It's not to say that it's not extremely difficult, because one day that client can come in happy, and the next day that client can come in extremely, extremely low mood if they're not working on themselves. But you have to feel like we're going into this work and we're working very, very hard with these people, including myself. I had to work really, really hard.
Right.
But research has showed, and life shows, when you do work and you care about yourself, change. But it's very hard. It's very difficult. And I don't sugarcoat that for my clients, myself, or anybody for that matter.
Yes.
Support matters. Loving yourself matters. Life matters. Your life matters.
Wow.
So what's your second part you asked about it? Oh, what would somebody do?
Yeah.
I think the most important thing, and I'll always say this, is please don't go straight to Google and like straight to looking up what's the worst thing about people with BPD, or what's the worst thing, like, because then you're just going to get, oh, my ex had it and this is the terrible thing. Because just like I said, we're opening up the world to just letting in the world's problems, right? And 10 years ago when I was diagnosed, I had two choices. I was either going to go to this route, turn my mind this way, or I was going to turn my mind to the world. Not to say I didn't go to Google for a little bit where I was like, wow. But everybody on the internet has something to say.
Right.
Think about that. They're even going to have something to say about what I'm saying, because everybody always has something to say. And when I'm put on the spot also, is very hard for me because I have a combination of ADHD and a whole bunch of things, but the fog comes in. Oh, paranoid. I'm coming up with paranoid delusions, hallucinations. So dissociation, the symptoms are coming as we're speaking.
Yeah.
So a lot of these also are markers. So someone suspects that their partner or someone has, come in with love, support, validation. Always, what do you need right now individually? Is there something I can do for you? You know, when was the last time you were outside? Just say somebody's been inside, depressed, hasn't done anything. Would you like to go for a nice meal? Would you like to go for a coffee? Coming in like you need to do this change, you might get a pushback, right? I always remember the people that were there for me that knocked down the door when I didn't want it knocked down. But once they knocked down the door, they came in gently after that. It's like you need to almost be there, but not shove after, if that makes sense a little bit. Because initially it's very hard. The choice to change is very hard because you use the statement, what if? It's not what if, it's what is. And what is happening internally is a cycle that's just an internal loop of life is this is my life and I am a horrible human. And what's going on right now, the way people talk about even the diagnosis and people with it, and now add on the internal stigma and the shame, is very sad. And it's sadder for somebody who really doesn't believe that that should even exist, let alone, because to call somebody manipulative when they're trying to survive, that's not understanding it. I'm willing to see this behavior differently sometimes, right? Now, that's not to say sometimes people do need to take accountability. This is where the work is.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. I feel like this is like a really great insight into aspects of what it could be like. And you're taking a stand, like you talked about going this way or that way, and you chose to go towards the world. And what I feel like is you use your platform, you use your voice, you use your life to like share about this and make a difference. And you're sharing like there's could be stigmas online. People say whatever they're saying, like what you're saying on the internet, this and that. You're choosing to say, hey, like, let's come at this with love, with compassion, without judgment. And this is like such a powerful and courageous stand in the world to be that embodiment while going through it yourself. And also like saying, hey, I'm not going to back down and shy away from this. I'm actually going to use it and be vulnerable and be open-hearted and be courageous and fearless and actually share it and say, like, let's remove this stigma. Let's come together. And I just want to acknowledge you for that because that's like epic.
You're a sweetheart. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like not, you make it look easy and it's not.
See, and I think that's the irony is that, you know, for a very long time, and there's a few other communities I'm involved with that are so important to me. It's hard for me, you know, continuously, even still, like there's still I don't know if we call them microaggressions, or there's people online, you know, they have their opinions, even colleagues during school and people, and they have their opinions about how I'm, again, so bold and comfortable to speak openly but, you know, then I think about figures in history that I don't even think this is bold. You think about Rosa Parks. You think about these people that let's just stick on Rosa Parks for a second, right?
Right.
So what? BPD? So what? Who cares? Remember we talked about who cares? Because, okay, so what? Who cares? It's a diagnosis that I got 10 years ago. I also got a couple more. Everybody wears shirts that are like, autism, ADHD, and I laugh because my host of the BPD bunch, she's fabulous, and we make these shirts, and everybody's like, "Where's these shirts?" But it's like I'm almost like laughing because okay, everybody's comfortable to talk about all these other things, but we added suicide ideation, right? And we have these things. Yes, it's serious. But at the same time, there's so many beautiful things that came with my diagnosis and that come with my diagnosis. I know that there's so much pushback because the symptoms are so tough, but I'm so creative. I'm so loving. I know I'm so sensitive, but I'm so loving. And I'm like, when I talk about creative, I've not met a person with BPD that doesn't have some sort of talent, but like weird talent. Like, if we stuck with my host, she like can knit and craft and do artwork and sing and like, but every person that I've met, right? Wow. And so it gets to the point where we also know how to beat ourselves up, like self-ruminate, self-invalidate, shame. But also, I know this is going to sound widely weird when I say this out loud. That's not just from us. That's because we're in a world that doesn't understand at all how to appreciate difference. So when I say BPD unicorns or BPD magic, there's a magic in that. So when somebody can recognize there's a catch-22 to it, I'm hoping that the catalyst of change is that we can actually start to own, not walk around and say, I am BPD and this is this and this BPD, but it's not that big of a deal. That because we have bad experiences doesn't mean we're a bad person.
Yes.
We're all of it.
Yes.
We're multifaceted. And we start to shame ourselves when we don't recognize these things. And being multifaceted, multidimensional, being all of it makes you you. It does. It makes you important.
Yeah.
So
I love that you brought up unicorns twice.
I know.
This episode.
Because I'm like unicorns, mermaids, all of it. Yes. So
yeah. Unicorns, mermaids. And, that's exactly it. Because whether it's BPD or any other aspect of our life, what I'm hearing and what you're saying is like respecting one another, understanding one another.
Yes.
Like respecting and understanding our what makes us unique and coexisting with that love. And that is like so what the world needs.
I meet people and they don't say, I hate this disorder because of me. I hate this disorder because I read so-and-so said this. I hate this disorder because they didn't want to give it to me. I hate this disorder because so-and-so in this news clip article said so. And so I'm like, what? So I understand. And I hate it because of the feelings and yada, yada, yada. But funny enough, the first statement is always other, like the other stuff first. So it's almost like we're shaming ourselves into existence instead of just existing as who we are. And I'm not telling us to over-identify with anything or identify with all of it or any of that. That's not what the point of this was. What you just said was so ding-dong because we're just humans living, and the experience is, why does any of that really matter to the extent where any shame should exist? Should just be like, for example, I also suffer with PMDD, right? It doesn't even need a name. It could be ABCD, but my husband always says it could be ABCDE. But the truth of it is there shouldn't be such a... I watched this commercial this morning. It made me laugh. What's the actress? Katherine Heigl or what's her name? She was doing a commercial for Poise.
Okay.
It made me giggle a bit because I was like, oh, her on Poise and like the pads. And I was like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. But then I honestly giggled a bit because it was for the pad commercial. But then I was like, good on her.
Yeah.
Coming out here doing a pad commercial. Why not?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Right.
Right? And then we think about these concepts. It's not that big of a deal. We're all so in our in our stuff that we're too big. I'm too big to not say it. Ooh, okay, I'll just go hide in my own little corner and be scared of the diagnosis, be scared of myself, be so scared to be me. So why do I come forward with it when somebody really truthfully asks me? Because we're all so scared to come forward as ourselves. So the real authentic part of me, and if we were to talk about catalyst of change for the third time, the third or final catalyst of change is to be yourself.
Yes.
All of it. Not be scared that someone's going to judge you, because they're going to judge you if you don't say something. They're going to judge you when you say something. They're going to always have something to say. So make them say it. Make everybody say something.
Yeah.
We're wrong. We're all wrong. Because there's no such thing as wrong or right. Unless it's brought to the court of law and we can talk about those guidelines. But nobody's wrong or right to tell you how to live your life. Not a single human being. Ever. And that's what I was stripped away from pretty much until that 1.5 years. And I worked on myself.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my gosh. I feel like that's like such a good place to bring this to a close.
Yeah.
Be your freaking self.
That's it. Yeah.
Be a unicorn.
Be a unicorn. Be a unicorn. Be a unicorn. Please. And join me in my party.
Yeah.
If you are a unicorn, you're welcome to my party.
Okay, then I guess I'm coming.
Yes. Oh, you're invited. You were already invited. I thought you were at the party.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm there. We're here.
Yeah, we're making the decorations.
No,
of course.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it. And the cake.
Oh, please. Oh, all cakes. Yeah.
Thank
So many
you.
things. Yeah,
Thank you for coming. Thank you for being a catalyst of change out in the world.
Thank you.
And for just being such a ray of beautiful, shining light and inspiring so many people. And it will only continue, and you're, one thing we didn't even touch on, but I want to mention is like, yes, we met and then our journey kind of intertwined and continued. And you I was working in the United Nations in Toronto on a I guess you could call it like a telethon type of event, and you performed.
Yeah,
And you're
love
like
that.
an amazing musician. So
Thank you.
yeah, it was like fun, and I want to encourage everyone to check out.
And maybe some new music's coming out, maybe, because maybe, you know what I mean? And I am very secretive, but maybe that's coming soon,
maybe.
But maybe stay tuned. But we're not dropping like that.
No,
We're
no,
just,
no, no,
yeah,
no, yeah.
very, very just for your ears if you want some music.
Absolutely.
Yes, no promotional material, nothing like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but we want to encourage everyone to, click all the links below, and we'll have your socials, your website, your clinic.
The best.
Yes, and you're the best. If this conversation touched something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Follow Melanie's work at Mind Over Borderline and continue the conversation around mental health and kindness at the core. And as always, stay present, stay purposeful, be yourself, and remember, you are the catalyst.